When people say they feel lost, what they're really saying is that the old way they've been living no longer works. They think something has gone wrong, but nothing has gone wrong. Growth always begins with discomfort before muscle gets stronger. It tears before clarity shows up. Confusion takes over. Feeling lost is not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're expanding beyond who you used to be. Most people never feel lost because they never leave what's familiar. They stay in routines that drain them, relationships that limit them, beliefs that keep them small. The moment you start questioning your direction, your values, your meaning, that's the moment you've stepped into a new level of awareness. That awareness can feel painful, but it's also powerful because it means you're no longer asleep. The real danger isn't feeling lost. The real danger is labeling that feeling as failure. When you do that, you collapse your energy. You start doubting yourself. You start hesitating. You start believing that you're behind in life. But life doesn't run on a timeline. It runs on seasons. Every season has uncertainty built into it. When you reframe being lost as a signal, you regain control. A signal is information. It's feedback. It's life telling you that your current strategy no longer matches your deeper needs. That moment is not asking you to quit. It's asking you to evolve. What determines whether this moment becomes a breakthrough or breakdown is the questions you ask yourself. The quality of your life is shaped by the quality of your questions. Most people, when they feel lost, ask disempowering questions. They ask, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? Why am I like this? Those questions force your brain to search for pain, limitation, and blame. And your brain will always answer the question you ask, even if the answer destroys your confidence. If you ask why you're broken, you'll find evidence that you are empowered people. Ask different questions. They ask questions that move them forward. They ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? What needs to change right now? What am I being prepared for? Those questions shift your focus from self-judgment to growth. Your brain begins to search for solutions instead of excuses. You stop being trapped in the problem and start training yourself to look for leverage. Being lost often means you've outgrown an identity. The goals that once motivated you no longer excite you. The standards you once accepted now feel empty. Instead of fighting that feeling, use it. Let it guide you to better questions. Ask yourself what truly matters. Now, not 5 years ago, not what mattered to your parents, not what society told you should want. Ask what gives you energy, what drains it, what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel numb. When you ask better questions consistently, your focus shifts, your emotions shift, your actions shift, and without realizing it, your direction begins to change. Most people believe that once they feel motivated, confident, or clear, then they'll take action. That belief keeps them stuck for years. Human beings don't change because they understand something intellectually. They change when their emotional state changes. Your state is everything. How you use your body, what you focus on, and the meaning you give things determines how you feel in any moment when you feel lost. Your body is usually collapsed. Your breathing is shallow, your movement is limited, and your focus is locked on what's missing. You're not stuck because life is hard. You're stuck because your state is weak. You can't solve a problem from the same state that created it. That's why trying to think your way out of feeling lost rarely works. Thinking follows physiology. If you change the way you move, breathe, and carry yourself, your emotions shift immediately. Confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you practice physically first. Energy creates emotion. Motion creates emotion. When you move with purpose, your nervous system gets a new message. Your body starts telling your brain that you're in control, even if nothing outside you has changed yet. This is why small physical changes can create massive internal shifts. Standing up straight, breathing deeply, engaging your body, getting your heart rate up, changing your environment. These things interrupt the emotional pattern of feeling lost. You don't need to understand everything. You need to break the pattern. When your state changes, your perception changes. What once felt overwhelming now feels manageable. What once felt confusing now feels like a challenge instead of a threat. Once your state shifts, action becomes possible, and action is where clarity is born. People believe clarity comes first, but clarity is the result of movement. You don't get clear by sitting still and analyzing your life. You get clear by engaging with life. Every action gives feedback. Every step gives data. When you take action, you discover what works and what doesn't. When you don't act, your mind fills the gap with fear, doubt, and worst. Case scenarios, the need to feel ready is one of the biggest traps people fall into. Readiness is a myth. Progress comes from commitment, not certainty. Action creates confidence because confidence is the experience of keeping promises to yourself. Each time you act despite uncertainty, you send a message to yourself that you can be trusted. That trust builds momentum. Momentum changes identity. Feeling lost often means you're waiting for permission. Permission to choose, permission to fail, permission to start over. But life rewards movement, not hesitation. You don't have to know where the road leads to take the next step. The next step reveals the next step when you act. Your focus shifts from fear to execution. When your focus shifts, your emotional state follows. Even imperfect action beats perfect inaction, because inaction reinforces the identity of being stuck. Action reinforces the identity of being someone who moves forward. When you change your state and take action, you stop asking why your life feels unclear and start discovering what direction feels right through experience, through engagement, through doing, through testing, through stepping into the unknown and letting life respond. When everything feels uncertain, most people underestimate the power of a single decision. They think they need a complete plan, total certainty, or a guaranteed outcome before they move. But decisions shape destiny far more than conditions ever will. A decision is not a preference. It's not "I'll try." A real decision cuts off alternatives. It tells your nervous system that something has changed. The moment you decide, your brain begins to look for ways to follow through, instead of reasons to hesitate. When people feel lost, it's often because they've delayed decisions for too long, staying in limbo, keeping all doors half open, exhausting themselves with internal debate. One clear decision restores momentum because it gives direction to your energy. It doesn't have to be a massive, life-altering decision. It can be deciding to take ownership of your mornings, deciding to protect your energy, deciding to stop tolerating something that drains you, deciding to move your body every day, deciding to learn instead of complain. Motion begins with decision, and momentum follows motion. When you decide, you move from being reactive to being intentional. You stop waiting for life to happen to you and start shaping it through choice. People often say they feel powerless, but powerlessness is rarely about lack of ability. It's about lack of focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. Whatever you consistently focus on becomes your emotional reality. If you focus on what you can't control, you feel overwhelmed. If you focus on what you lack, you feel defeated. If you focus on uncertainty, fear grows. But the moment you redirect focus toward what you can influence, your emotional state shifts. Control begins internally, not externally. Feeling lost often means your focus has been hijacked by questions that weaken you. You replay past mistakes, you imagine future failures, you compare your life to others. That focus trains your brain to stay stuck. The mind is a powerful servant, but a terrible master. It will magnify whatever you feed it. When you consciously choose where to focus, you reclaim control of your experience. You don't deny reality, you direct your attention within it. Focus is not just mental, it's emotional and physical. What you focus on shapes how you breathe, how you move, how you speak to yourself. When you focus on progress, even small progress, you feel capable. When you focus on learning, setbacks become feedback. When you focus on contribution, your problems shrink. This is why changing focus can instantly change how lost you feel. Even if nothing around you has changed yet, one committed decision combined with disciplined focus creates a shift in identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's drifting and start seeing yourself as someone who chooses. Each day you reinforce that identity by directing your attention toward growth instead of doubt, solutions instead of stories, action instead of analysis. Over time, that focus rewires your expectations, your habits, and your emotional baseline. You begin to notice opportunities you once ignored. You feel stronger, not because life is easier, but because your focus is sharper and your decisions are aligned with who you are becoming rather than who you used to be. When people feel lost, they usually turn inward and stay there. They think about their problems, their fears, their confusion, their past mistakes. The more they focus on themselves, the heavier everything feels. That's because the human mind was never designed to find meaning through self-absorption. Meaning comes from contribution. The fastest way to feel lost is to make life only about you. The fastest way to feel found is to make life about impact. When you contribute, your problems don't magically disappear, but they lose their power over you. Your perspective expands. Your pain gains purpose. Purpose is not something you discover by thinking harder. Purpose emerges when you give your energy to something beyond your own needs. When you help someone, support someone, or serve a cause bigger than your own emotions, something shifts inside you. You feel useful, you feel connected, you feel alive. Even small acts of contribution change your emotional state because they remind you that you matter, that you have value right now, not someday in the future when everything is figured out. Many people believe they need to fix themselves before they can help others. That belief keeps them isolated. Contribution is not a reward for being perfect. It's a pathway out of feeling stuck. When you focus on how you can add value today, your attention moves away from confusion and toward usefulness. Energy rises, confidence grows. Life starts responding differently because you're showing up differently. At the same time, contribution alone is not enough if your standards remain low. Standards are the invisible rules you live by. They determine what you tolerate, what you accept, and what you expect from yourself. People don't get what they want in life. They get what they tolerate. Feeling lost often comes from living below your true standards for too long. You accept situations that drain you. You stay in habits that weaken you. You negotiate with yourself instead of committing to change. Raising your standards is not about perfection. It's about identity. The moment you decide, this is who I am now, and this is what I no longer accept, your behavior begins to shift. Standards are not wishes. They are non-negotiables. When you raise them, you change how you act. Even when you don't feel motivated, you don't wait for confidence. You act in alignment with your values, and confidence follows. Contribution gives your life meaning. Standards give your life direction. Without standards, contribution becomes inconsistent. Without contribution, standards become self-centered. Together, they create a powerful foundation. You begin to ask not just how you can help, but how you can help at your highest level. You stop settling for what's easy and start committing to what's meaningful. When you raise your standards, you naturally look for ways to grow so you can give more. You invest in your energy, your skills, your mindset, because you know others depend on the best version of you. You stop seeing growth as selfish and start seeing it as a responsibility. Feeling lost fades when your life is guided by service and governed by strong personal standards. You no longer drift. You live with intention, choosing to give more, demand more from yourself, and step into a life that feels aligned with who you are capable of becoming. Every meaningful change begins with discomfort. People want growth without uncertainty, transformation without tension, confidence without challenge. That combination doesn't exist. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something new is being built. The moment you step outside the familiar, your nervous system reacts. Fear shows up, doubt shows up, confusion shows up. Not because you're incapable, but because you're doing something you've never done before. The brain is wired to protect what's familiar, not to guarantee fulfillment. So when discomfort appears, most people interpret it as danger and retreat back to what they know, even if what they know is slowly draining them. Every breakthrough you've ever had in your life came after a period of uncertainty. You didn't gain strength when things were easy. You gained strength when you were stretched. When people feel lost, they often think they need comfort. What they actually need is challenge with meaning. Discomfort becomes suffering only when you don't understand its purpose. When you see discomfort as training, your relationship with it changes. It stops being something you avoid and becomes something you use. Growth demands that an old version of you dies so a new one can take its place. That death is rarely graceful. It feels messy. It feels unstable. But that instability is temporary. What keeps people stuck is not discomfort itself, but the belief that discomfort means they're on the wrong path. In reality, discomfort is often proof that you're exactly where you need to be. The question is not how to eliminate discomfort, but how to move through it with intention. That's where action comes in. Purpose is not something you find by waiting. Purpose is built through action, repetition, and commitment. People talk about purpose as if it's hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered once they think hard enough. Purpose is forged, not found. It's created through the choices you make daily, especially when you don't feel inspired. Action gives shape to identity. Identity gives meaning to life. You don't wake up one day knowing your purpose. Purpose is forged, not found. You wake up one day realizing that your actions have been aligned long enough to create meaning. Purpose is the byproduct of consistent contribution, growth, and responsibility. It evolves as you evolve. What fulfilled you 5 years ago may not fulfill you now. And that doesn't mean you're lost. It means your purpose is expanding. Most people wait to feel certain before they commit, but certainty comes after commitment, not before. When you act without certainty, you build trust in yourself. That trust becomes confidence. Confidence fuels further action. Over time, those actions form a pattern. That pattern becomes a path. That path becomes a sense of direction. Purpose emerges from engagement, not contemplation. Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. Avoiding it keeps you safe, but stagnant. Embracing it keeps you growing. The people who live fulfilled lives are not braver than others. They've simply trained themselves to associate discomfort with progress instead of danger. They lean into the stretch. They move before they feel ready. They act while fear is still present. Purpose requires standards, discipline, and follow through. It requires doing what you said you would do long after the initial emotion fades. That's why purpose feels so elusive to people who rely on motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Purpose is sustained by commitment. Commitment shows up in habits. Habits show up in daily action. Daily action compounds into identity. Feeling lost often comes from a disconnect between what you do daily and who you want to become. Purpose reconnects those dots. When your actions align with your values, life feels meaningful. Even when it's difficult. When your actions contradict your values, life feels empty. Even when things look good on the surface, purpose is alignment in motion. Discomfort keeps showing up at every new level. It never disappears. What changes is your capacity to handle it. Each time you move through discomfort instead of away from it, you expand your sense of self. You realize you're stronger than you thought. That realization becomes part of your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids pain and start seeing yourself as someone who grows through it. Purpose doesn't eliminate pain. It gives pain context. It gives struggle meaning. It turns obstacles into assignments. When you know why you're moving forward, you don't need everything to be easy. You need it to be worth it. Purpose answers that question. The discomfort you feel today is shaping the clarity you'll have tomorrow. The actions you take today are shaping the meaning you'll live tomorrow. Purpose is not a destination you arrive at. It's a direction you commit to. You build it every time you choose growth over comfort, contribution over avoidance, action over analysis. You don't wait to feel certain. You move, you adjust, you learn, you grow. And through that process, purpose takes form through lived experience, through repeated decisions, through choosing to step forward, even when the path isn't fully visible. Feeling lost is not the end of your story. It's the point where the story demands that you step up as the author instead of the observer. Life doesn't whisper when it wants change. It applies pressure. That pressure is not meant to crush you. It's meant to shape you. Every moment of uncertainty is an invitation to decide who you are going to be when the old answers no longer work. You don't need to wait for the fear to disappear, because fear is not the enemy. Comfort is. Comfort keeps you repeating patterns that no longer serve you, while fear often shows up right before expansion. The truth is, you have already survived moments you once believed you wouldn't. You've already adapted, endured, and grown more than you give yourself credit for. The reason this moment feels different is because it's asking for more of you. Not more effort, but more honesty, more ownership, more willingness to let go of identities that once protected you but now limit you. Being lost strips away illusions and forces you to confront what actually matters. Not what looks good, not what's expected, but what feels aligned with who you're becoming. This is the moment where excuses lose their power. Not because life suddenly becomes fair, but because you realize that waiting has a cost. Every day you delay making a decision, you reinforce the habit of hesitation. Every day you avoid discomfort, you strengthen the identity of avoidance. And every day you choose action, even imperfect action, you reinforce the identity of someone who moves forward despite uncertainty. Identity is not formed by intentions, it's formed by patterns. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not missing something essential that others have. What you are missing is alignment between your standards, your actions, and your values. When those three come together, life feels meaningful even when it's hard. When they are disconnected, life feels empty even when things look successful on the outside. Fulfillment is not found in ease, it's found in engagement. The world does not reward potential, it rewards participation. It responds to movement. It responds to commitment. It responds to people who decide that their past does not get to dictate their future. The moment you stop negotiating with your doubts and start acting on your values, momentum begins to build. Momentum is subtle at first, but it compounds. Small actions create small wins. Small wins build confidence. Confidence fuels courage. Courage leads to bigger decisions. You don't need to know who you'll be 5 years from now. You need to know who you're willing to be today. Someone who shows up. Someone who keeps promises to themselves. Someone who chooses growth when comfort is tempting. Someone who understands that meaning is not given, it's earned through responsibility and contribution. Responsibility is not a burden, it's power. The moment you take responsibility for your state, your focus, and your actions, you reclaim control over your experience. Life will continue to challenge you at every new level. That never stops. What changes is your interpretation of those challenges. Instead of seeing them as signs to retreat, you begin to see them as signals to rise. Instead of asking why this is happening to you, you ask how this is shaping you. That shift alone changes everything. It turns obstacles into teachers and setbacks into feedback. Purpose is not something you wait to feel inspired about. It's something you commit to building through discipline and service. It grows when you give more than you take. When you stretch beyond what's easy, when you invest in becoming someone capable of carrying greater responsibility. Purpose is not about you feeling good all the time. It's about doing what matters, even when it's uncomfortable. The discomfort you're experiencing now is not random. It's connected to the next version of you. Every time you lean into that discomfort, instead of numbing it or running from it, you strengthen your capacity. Capacity is what allows you to hold more joy, more success, more impact. People who avoid discomfort also avoid depth. They live on the surface of life. People who embrace growth live with intensity, meaning, and direction. You are not meant to have everything figured out. You are meant to be in motion. Motion creates feedback. Feedback creates refinement. Refinement creates mastery. Mastery creates confidence. Confidence creates clarity. Clarity creates direction. Direction creates meaning. Meaning creates fulfillment. But it all starts with movement. Let this moment be the one where you stop waiting for certainty and start trusting your ability to adapt. Let it be the moment where you raise your standards for how you treat yourself, how you spend your time, and how you show up for others. Let it be the moment where you decide that feeling lost will no longer be a reason to pause, but a reason to act. Life rewards those who commit before they feel ready, who act before they feel confident, who choose growth before comfort. You don't need to see the entire path. You need to take the step that's in front of you. The path reveals itself through movement, through effort, through courage in the face of uncertainty. Meaning is built through lived experience, through choosing again and again to move forward, to contribute, to grow, to become, allowing purpose to take shape through action, through discipline, through alignment, through the daily decision to live intentionally, even when the future is unclear.